Peter Wolf.
Here.
Jeff Namath.
Here.
Holly Parker.
Here.
And I've noticed that Lisa Young and Helen Chandler are absent.
Sounds good. Hopefully they'll come in soon. All right,
At least for the moment.
For the moment, yes, exactly. So item C, approval of the agenda. Did we have a copy of the previous agenda or the current agenda? So everyone should have received the agenda, so you should have that on hand. Is there a motion to approve this agenda?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
My second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All right. So
All right.
moving on to item D, the first public commentary. I don't see any public here. I see only
I do not
CTN.
see any. Nope.
All right, so we will then move on. If others come in, we can do that for the second one. Item E, approval of minutes of previous meeting. I don't know that that came through. Was there in the previous, did you send that out? I don't think I saw that.
I might have neglected to do that.
All right, well, so I see it's previous meetings. So how about next time, send out both of them and then we'll go through that. So we will not approve that yet because we haven't approved it.
Tabled, okay.
Tabled. Moving on to item F, presentations. Do you have presentations today? No, okay. So then we have that, then we'll move on to item G, regular business agenda items. So Stephanie, I'll let you work through this.
All right, so yeah, I just figured we haven't met in a couple months. I just wanted to make sure everybody was on the same page and knows what we've been doing at Market. We, of course, are still open. We are actually the only park facility in the city of Ann Arbor that is currently open. And that is because, of course, we are an essential food service. And some changes, we've just pretty much been starting to winterize our protocol for COVID, which means, you know, instead of having hand washing sinks, those have been removed, and now we actually have hand sanitizing stations, which is basically like a hand sanitizer dispenser in place of that. We actually also just made our winter or COVID setup a little bit more ADA accessible as well. We put in an additional step in front of the market window, so it's a little bit easier for people to get to it. And we've also put in a little bit of extra pavement in a problematic corner that was hard for wheelchair users to access. So that's something that we have just completed recently to make us, you know, more streamlined with our COVID protocol as well as ready for winter. And then in terms of other stuff, I will get to some more details about what's been going on in a later item on the agenda. But I just wanted to make sure you were all aware that we are not closing. We have no plans to close. And, you know, of course, we'll continue year round. We have decided to cancel the December 26th market, and that was because of just lack of vendor interest. But we will be resuming in our winter hours on January 2nd. And as well, next Wednesday is our last Wednesday market until May. So we're moving forward, still doing well, all things considered.
Do you have a sense of how attendance has been?
Of vendors?
Of vendors and customers.
Yeah, it's been great. Obviously, Wednesdays are a little slower, just it's the nature of the beast this time of year in particular. I mean, yesterday it snowed, so that obviously put a damper on some things, but I have been getting reports from artisans saying that they've been having banner years, that they've had days recently that have been the best day they've had ever. So I think, you know, that's definitely going on. We still get calls constantly from customers, you know, are you still open? And all this, because I think people just not only want to support local, but they feel more comfortable still shopping outside. And, you know, having a nice roof helps with that when it's snowing. But yeah, it's been great. Averaging Saturdays, we've been around between 50 and 60 vendors per Saturday over the last little bit. And then Wednesday's been hovering around like 22 to 25 in the last month or so. So yeah, we've been, according to the system manager, she said that we're pretty much at regular levels of both customers as well as vendors. We might be a little bit higher on vendors, but maybe just 2 or 3. It's very similar to years past.
That's great. Are there other comments? Like Jeff, how's the COVID been in experience for you for this for winter?
So far it's been good. I think that the winter's actually going to be a breeze compared to the summer because there's less people, and the people who do come down there in the winter just seem to be more courteous to everybody. You know, as far as, you know, I don't think we're going to have any problem about people through the winter time.
Great.
Yeah, I would agree with that. You know, the mask compliance has gotten better and better, and customers are really been great about that now.
So is the winter schedule staying unchanged through the winter? So Wednesday market will stay through the end of the year and
Yeah. Wednesday market ends next Wednesday. So we will not be doing one on December 30th. And then 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. hours begin January 2nd. And yeah, we have plans to just do Saturday market throughout the winter, like normal schedule, and then resuming Wednesday market in May when we shift the other Saturday back to the other hours as well.
Great.
Great.
Thanks for the updates.
Yeah. So then moving on to item 2, 4th and Catherine parking lot conversion survey.
Yes, so just wanted to tell you where they're at in that process. They just closed the survey on Monday. So we're hoping to get a full report from them coming soon. But from everything I could gather was, you know, they're trying to move forward with it. It's just more in terms of what the proposal will be. I, of course, encouraged all vendors to give feedback. I'm not sure how many took me up on that because it was in my weekly email, you know, and there's a lot of other items in there. But that seems to be moving forward. But as I said, I won't know until we get more direct feedback from the city. Just a little short update.
Mm-hmm. Any other comments folks have on that for the 4th and Catherine parking lot conversion survey?
No.
Okay. All right. So then moving on to item 3, vendor update.
Yeah, so this is sort of a 2-pronged conversation piece. One is just wanted to update you in terms of what our challenges have been with COVID. Because I believe it's either, yeah, I think it's 4 or 5 vendors or vendor staff. I'd actually believe the number is 5. Have either been exposed to someone positive or they themselves have tested positive. Luckily, everybody was very good about it. People told us right away. People quarantined themselves. The one vendor that we had who was exposed to her positive neighbor did get a negative test before she came back to market. She is back. We just got word on Monday of another vendor, White Lotus, is no longer coming to market this year due to a staff member testing positive. So again, you know, we're taking it one day at a time. I think we've been very lucky at market because we've had a lot of close calls. But because our vendors took it very seriously and because we have a very clear communication about what you should do if you're in that predicament, we've stayed ahead of it, and we have not had any community spread whatsoever resulting from that. So that's sort of, you know, a scary thing, but also really positive that people are responding in a way that is helpful and is not making things worse. Because as I said, you know, we're planning on staying open The only scenario under which we would close would be if staff tested positive, and in that context, it would only be for the duration of quarantine until staff receive 2 negative tests. But other than that, talking to supervisors, talking to people at parks, that's sort of our procedure moving forward. And of course, we've told vendors, if you think you've been exposed, stay home, don't come to market. If you feel sick, do not come to market. And so everyone's been really great about informing us when this happens, following what the health department says. So yeah, I think we keep getting pretty lucky in terms of very close calls, but coming out the other side in a positive way. So that's sort of point one about the vendors. I don't know if anyone had any feedback for that before I add the other piece I was going to bring up, which is not specifically COVID related. Okay.
I'm glad you were able to avoid it. That's scary. It's a hard time. So I commend you for actually getting through that, and let's hope that keeps going. So.
And I don't know if you wanted to speak to that, Jeff, at all, what you experienced with that. You don't have to.
No, that's fine. So first of all, I think it says a lot. It speaks a lot that we were able to stay ahead of it all summer, and throughout the whole season, just because the seriousness that we all put towards it. I had an employee that had it, and she had a negative test on Friday, and then the only interaction with Market, first of all, she only works for us at Market, so it's not, we only see her on Saturdays and Wednesdays. And she had a negative test on Friday, so that made her not contagious. And then she was at Market, and she had her mask on the whole time. The rest of our staff had their mask on. And she was fine on Sunday, and she was fine on Monday. And then on Tuesday, she wasn't feeling good, so she went in and got another test, and she tested positive. So then she hadn't been around any of us. The way it falls with contagiousness, she wasn't contagious on Saturday, so she wasn't around us. So I think had she been contagious that day, then everyone would have had to definitely quarantine. But the fact that she was only around us that one day when she wasn't contagious, so there's a lot of there's a lot of figuring out. It's important to take the time to do all that.
Yep.
And none of the other staff got it. It's been what, a month and a half.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's been a while.
So so we definitely handled that right, and it's just
Yep.
Yeah, like
yeah,
you said,
got
close to home.
definitely
Close to home.
got lucky with the timing for sure.
Yep.
And one of the other vendors that was tested positive, like they actually weren't at Market at all.
Right.
So it's not even that all these vendors had even been coming. I think what Jeff was saying, and then with the most recent case, those were the only ones that were even a person anywhere remotely near Market at the time. The others were, people tested positive after they had gone to a gathering, after they had been at Market. So it was not even relative. So that's what I'm saying in terms of close calls. But I think we have a really strong protocol in place, and everybody's committed to having the Market stay open. So people are taking it pretty seriously. And I see that Helen is joining us while I'm saying that. Hey, Helen. Can't hear you yet.
She doesn't have audio yet.
Yeah. All right. You can unmute yourself. You're muted.
Got it.
Oh,
Got
there
it.
you go. Hi.
I made it. Sorry.
Hi.
No
It's
problem.
okay.
Welcome.
That's why I put a reminder. I thought, people got a lot going on, so welcome. We were just giving an update about the close calls the Market has had with COVID positive staff, and the fact that, and I shouldn't say staff of the actual Market, staff of vendors and vendors themselves. because we've been very fortunate that we've had about 5 close calls, but there's been nobody that spread it to anyone at market. So that's the summary of what we have been talking about.
Okay. Well, that's really good.
Yeah, I don't know if you've heard, White Lotus will not be present for the next couple weeks for that reason.
Oh, I hadn't heard that.
Yeah, they'll be back in January.
Okay.
So, and I think they were telling all of their social media followers just a couple days ago. So it's public knowledge.
Yeah. Well, I hope everyone's okay.
Yeah. Us as well. But yeah, so that was the point for first point A about my vendor update. The second point is I just wanted to give some context that we have brought on a few new vendors in the last couple months. Again, you know, similar to what we talked about before, before, these are all vendors that fill a niche that we really need. For example, we brought in a mushroom vendor because of course our previous mushroom vendor passed away earlier this year. We brought on a sausage person because right now, you know, we only have one meat vendor and a couple people with poultry and then other items. We brought on a new bakery that has similar stuff that really popular vendor Cafe Japan has, but they don't do the winter months. So that's sort of how we've been approaching it, you know, really only taking on people that have a product that we are in need of, that we don't have enough of at the market. And then of course, you know, whether or not there's space. So that's the other update that I have about that, because I know there had been some questions that I had gotten from vendors about, you know, what's our procedure on that? How are we approaching it? And that's pretty much what we're doing, because of course our constraints are because of our need for physical distancing during COVID. We just want to make sure that, you know, now we're at the rate, because it's winter time, all of our larger vendors are at the amount of stalls that they do usually have. So once we figured that was happening, we figured it was, you know, time to bring on some new folks to fill voids that we had in market. So I don't know if anyone has any questions or comments about that.
So from talking to folks at the market, I did hear some questions about, I don't know, some either the sign-in procedure and also like jumbling of seniority stuff that I was wondering if you could speak to that, because I don't necessarily understand that so much myself because I'm not actually a vendor, but that there have been something going on there. Is that?
Yeah, I think that was largely a misunderstanding, because definitely no, we are following seniority procedures. The only thing that's really different this year is that the usual move-up process that happens in August, we didn't do it because we felt it wouldn't be fair, since people were already at that point at a limited amount of stalls. They weren't using their assigned full stalls. So we just figured that that was not something that would have been equitable. With that said, we did promote the top farmer and the top artisan to their annual status. And the main reason we did that was that we had space. Specifically, there were 2 unclaimed stalls from last year's move up. So we figured that was the most equitable way, because it was a stall that nobody had chosen the year before. So it wasn't a situation where people would have, you know, wanted to choose it and got passed over. But that was sort of what we had said about that. So I don't know if that answers your question. Jeff, did you have any feedback on
Okay.
that?
So I don't want anyone to take this the wrong way, because I'm not complaining at all. But I think, did we talk about any of that at any of the commission meetings about giving the stall to Janice?
What do you mean?
I missed a couple of the meetings because I couldn't dial in or whatever. But was that discussed at the meetings? Any of the
Yeah.
meetings? Oh,
Yes.
it was. Okay.
Yep.
I wanted to make sure that it was discussed at the meetings. And this is kind of off topic. I guess it kind of falls under the topic, but
Sure.
I think it's important If we voted on it, I would vote yes, definitely. But I think it's important that we meet, even if there's times when we used to drive up to the courthouse or the city hall, and we'd walk in there and we'd sit down for 10, 15 minutes and the meeting would be over because there's no new business. But at the same time, I think it would be to everyone's benefit if we did that, even if it's on the Zoom, if we just made sure we do this every month. And the only reason I even bring this up is because maybe the people who are complaining about some of this move up and stuff like that, at least when we're talking here, it is public. So it's if they didn't call in and they didn't listen, then that's, we just need to make sure everything's done. Does that make sense?
Oh, of course, and I completely agree. And just to give a little more context, all of this stuff I've also communicated to vendors. I put it in multiple emails, probably for like a month and a half. It was in the email explaining the move up, explaining exactly why. So this has definitely not only been talked about here, but it's been talked about directly to vendors as well. And anybody that is maybe a little confused about that, that might be because they have formed an opinion and have not actually talked to anybody about it, or not been present here, or not read the communication.
Right. Okay. I just wanted to add that.
No, I think that's great. And the main reason we haven't had it the last few months is that, I didn't really have anything new to report. And in previous commissions I was on, that's when we would cancel if there was nothing really for content. But I think this is sort of a different animal, and point taken for sure.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I just want to echo that, just support that, Jeff. I think it's important for us to just open the forum so that if there are concerns, whether it's from vendors or the public, that there's an opportunity to be heard. And of course, I know meetings have to get canceled sometimes and you might not have quorum or whatever, but definitely want to make sure that the vendors and that the public knows that we're here to hear whatever concerns or raise whatever concerns are brought to us. So I think I'm glad you said that, Jeff. I think it is important. And if there's no new business and we run through everything really quickly, then we can all go home or stay home, as the case may be right now.
Exactly. Great. Did that answer all your question that you had, Peter?
It does, yeah. I know going to the market, sometimes I just end up chatting with a lot of people. And so that it's just trying to bring some of those things to the fore and make sure that they're getting addressed and that we've got some clarity there. And I know you guys are doing a lot of stuff in the background. And so I'm in a weird, I'm just kind of chatting with people. So I'm not actually.
Yeah, no, I mean, it is what it is. And I think also part of it is people are so used to doing things a specific way, and COVID has just thrown that completely out the window. So I think obviously it's going to be anxiety-ridden interactions that are going to happen with folks. That's just the nature of the beast. And again, if we had made mistakes along the way, that's because we were trying, and someone said, I wanted this stall, but then they changed it and we didn't get the message. So there might have been some confusion. And, I completely take responsibility if that was my fault, in terms of like, we're all trying to just make it work for everybody. And it's not a perfect process. However, I will say that I think the current sign-in process is actually working well. And all the feedback that I've gotten from people is that people really like it better. People come to market less stressed. There's less animosity. It's more of a calm environment in the morning because people are just setting up. They're not having an anxiety attack about whether or not they'll get the stall they want. And again, obviously I wasn't there before, so I don't really know how it went down, but all the feedback that I've received and that's been about from, I would say like 16 to 20 vendors have told me that they really appreciate this shift and they want it to stay as is. And conversely, there's been maybe one person that wants it to go back to what it was, at least from people that have talked to me about it.
Yep. And I think actually to follow on Jeff's comment with that too, that it may be, COVID is a little different time, so it might be worthwhile to kind of, maybe guide people into this meeting too, but guide more vendors too into that, because I think that historically it was that people could, meet just in crossing and path and have normal conversations. And that's, social distancing has made that harder. And some people also may feel like they don't have as much of a voice because of that. And this is a forum for that. It's always been one, but now it's maybe even more important. And so trying to make them aware of this and bring them in on this, and also, and like Jeff was saying too, let's, even if we don't have anything, which sometimes we don't, that it's worthwhile to make sure we have that opportunity.
Sure, and just so you all know, I do put this meeting in my communications with them. I put the agenda, I give the information for sign on. I even asked for agenda items. I said, does anyone have anything we want to talk about? So, but again, you know, I'm not sure if people are actually reading the emails that I'm sending beyond just sort of, where's my stall? Okay, that's it. And I understand people are busy, there's a lot going on. But you know, I've definitely been very open in my communication with folks.
Great. I think that's really good.
Continue to do so.
Important. Yes. Good.
Great. I don't know if
Any
anyone
other
else has
comments?
any questions, comments about that topic. Sorry, Peter, go ahead.
Nope, that doesn't gonna say anything.
Sorry, I heard. Maybe it's just the background noise.
All right, so May, we'll move on to item 4, winterization and market continuing conversation.
Yeah, and as I was looking at how this formatted, I do not know what happened with the sizing. So this was not supposed to be, you know, a really bold item. I don't know why it's like 4 times the size of everything else. Sometimes the program that I create this in is sometimes a little bit hard to figure out. So yes, it's sort of an underwhelming update for how prominently displayed that was. Yeah, so again, it's still on pause. You probably guessed that. The main reason being that, of course, we don't really want to create the market into an indoor space at this time because it makes it risky, or makes it that we might not be able to stay open, because the way that the state has defined what an indoor space is, that means that even if you have a roof and, you know, something that can be construed as a wall, you are considered indoor. So that's sort of the main thing, but we do hope that it will still be moving forward in the future. I know I hate to be the one to say this because it's sort of been getting pushed down the road for decades. But that's where we're at. Plus the budget shortfall that has happened overall, it doesn't necessarily impact the funding that we have set aside for this, but that's also something that, you know, in terms of priorities of the city, they've got a lot of other things in advance of this, but that's not to say that's not something we're still serious about and want to have happen in the future. But I don't have any real updates, and that's another reason why, you know, the last couple of months I didn't want to have this be what I presented to you about this item again and again, but unfortunately that is the reality of that project. So I don't know if anyone has any feedback on that.
Is there a way for, so of course, understood that a lot of things are put on pause during the pandemic, but is there a way for us to, I mean, I think it's the second part of your update that's probably most worrying, which is that, you know, the money will go away because other priorities will come up. And this is, you know, something that's long been on the agenda and on the plan. And so is there some way that we could move forward even with like contracting with a company to do the work at a future time when, you know, maybe in the summer or whatever, when the pandemic is over, or not over, but calmed down, and that work is more feasible and safe? I feel like just like if there's any way that we can make forward progress or forward momentum, it's really, I think, important to try to find ways to do that. Otherwise, this is just never, it's just never going to happen.
Well, you know, I hear what you're saying, but I also want to reiterate that we're in a very strange times right now, and we are the only facility that is currently open. So we are in sort of a precarious situation as a whole entity. So that's really where I'm coming from on this. And that's not to say we're not interested. And plus, you know, it's not necessarily, you know, I can't just say, let's go ahead and do it. You know, there's a lot of people ahead above me that do need to facilitate this happening. And I just have not had the ability to have meetings with them. They've not put this on their agenda, even though I've requested it. So I hear you, but realistically, this is something that's still going to be on pause for the foreseeable future, and hopefully it is something that we can move forward, maybe in the spring. Maybe once we get through this winter, we can revisit in the spring. With that said, we are already doing a project at Market this winter time, which is making the bathroom and the women's bathroom specifically ADA accessible, which is something that has been in the works for a while. And I just heard from the architects today, and that actually is going forward. So I think, once that is completed, it makes a lot of sense to be able to regroup and start the ball rolling again in terms of getting bids and moving forward on the construction at that time.
I appreciate that. And please let me be clear that I know this is not this is not something that you have the personal control over or power. It's just you're our portal, right, to the people who do. So do you think it's worth us requesting a representative from the city to come who maybe from leadership that does have budgetary sway to come and just give us an update and hear our concerns, and just to keep it front of mind, and frankly, Stephanie, to give you some support and backup too. So it's not just you saying, can we put this on our agenda to discuss, but the commission is actually requesting this. I think, we would like to be your advocate and ally in that conversation, if you think that's helpful.
I mean, I think the step one really would be for me to have a meeting with the architect that is supposed to be getting scheduled. Maybe just need to circle back with them to make sure this is something that is still on their priority list and hasn't been forgotten about. So I think that's step one. And then if that is still not moving forward, then I think it would be time to maybe request an audience with them for you all.
Okay, that sounds.
The current moment, I really just, there's a lot of stuff going on. Main City Hall's closed. I'm the only one that actually is working it all in person. So, and that's, it's hard. It's a hard time for all of us, as you know. And I understand what you're saying. And from your perspective, I get it. It is frustrating. You got so close last year, and it seems like it's still sort of, just within, excuse me, outside of reach. So I hear that. I just was trying to, give some context to what the holdup is.
Yeah, I think, we appreciate that. And we also appreciate that you're in a tough position. So whatever we can do to help you and sort of be an additional voice, we certainly want to do.
Great. Yeah, I'll definitely make a note of what you're saying and see what they say. Thanks.
I guess I might bring up 2 points with that too, is that one of them is, based on my own experience with things with the city and building stuff too, is that if we got as far as possible today toward getting it going, I don't think there's any chance it would be installed before the end of the pandemic.
Sure.
In a fantasy world, it'd be great if it was in next week, but it doesn't. I'm moving at governmental light speed. It will be still a long ways. So what I might suggest with that too is that what we have now in some ways is, although we don't have all the people and we don't have all the final things, is to create a plan, and that it's create a timeline and say that it's and which involves collecting all the information that we had already collected and making sure we've got that in. If, for example, it'd be helpful, I think, if I think most of it should be available on your side. I have pieces of it, but hopefully you have the whole thing, and assemble that and send that out to all of us. And so that we as a commission too could help to kind of establish a sequence and timeline of kind of where we want to go, to at least be on the same page. So it's okay, we're in phase 1, phase 2, where what things need to happen for the next step to go. That would be, because it feels like kind of we're just waiting, and I fear we'll wait until then we'll start, and then it will be another 8 months before so it's we have some time potentially now. I mean, that's the only thing we have, so let's exploit that.
Sure. And just to play devil's advocate for a second, say that this is still going on next winter, and it's really not in our interest to be an enclosed space. I think that's maybe part of the concern as well, as if we were to put all this effort in and like that would actually make it so that we couldn't continue operation. That's, I'm not necessarily saying that's going to happen, but I think that that's also part of the pause that is going on, is that they want to sort of see how things play out a little bit more before putting such a direct investment in a large scale project.
I guess one thing I might say with that is that I'd be surprised if that happened too, in terms of vaccinations should change things. But the other part is that it is a roll-up side, and so it's that we're talking about.
I know, but the way that the indoor
That's
is
how they
written
zone it.
is just a roof. I mean, like for ice rink can't be open right now because it's considered indoor. The way that the city, or the way that the state has written the ordinance.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that's maybe another piece of this puzzle that is maybe not that clear. And that's what they're working off of, is that information.
Would it be possible to, I mean, I'm envisioning this with the sides rolled up all the time. And basically when we get there, we set up and then we roll our side down. I'm assuming during the week, everything's going to be rolled up. So it's going to look somewhat like it does now. Would that even be an issue if the doors were locked up so that there was no way to even pull them down? I mean, we've all been good at listening and doing what we're supposed to so far. So I don't think that you would have to lock them. I think, you know, if you told everyone to leave them open, they would. But I mean, even that could be an extra precaution. Something you could tell them is, you know, this isn't going to affect it isn't going to make it an indoor space if they're all open. It's still an outdoor space.
Sure. Well, obviously it's still going to be an outdoor space, and but you know, I'm just saying that these are some concerns that are in play, and just to remind that, you know, we are the only facility open, and we had to, you know, be pretty clear on that we were going to stay open. So that's the other side of this, is that yes, I know it seems like it's great, let's move forward, but we also do need to remember that we are at similar levels to April and May in terms of the virus. So I love your enthusiasm. I'm just trying to, you know, present all potential scenarios. And I think, you know, I will go back to the architect and see what they have to say, and see if there's some way that they can just get a proposal written up to present as soon as we can.
All right, any other comments? All right, hearing none, then we'll go on to 5. Any other comments?
Yeah, on any topic.
Which is kind of related
questions.
to item H too, of any comments or new business?
Yes. Or is there any things that people just want to add? Could be completely unrelated to things that we've talked about.
All right, well, hearing none, we will move on to I, reports. Do you have any reports today?
Nope.
No reports. All right, then moving on to J, second public comment, not limited to agenda items. Anyone here actually public?
I am not seeing any members of the public. We just
All right.
have Becky with us.
Well, that then leads us to item L, adjournment. So we're adjourned our meeting. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey.